Hi, my name is Noor and Nabilah binti ROSDI, and together with my friends, we will be presenting about company analysis for the Apollo Food Holdings Berhad. So without further ado, let's go! Apollo Food Holdings Berhad, or Apollo Food, is a manufacturer and supplier of confectionaries. The company offers products such as chocolate layer cake, Swiss roll products, layer cakes, chocolate wafer products, and wafer products. It markets its products under the brand Apollo. As a leading manufacturer of the chocolate confectionery products and layer cake in Malaysia, the Apollo products are distributed in Malaysia and other overseas markets, which are Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and others.
And hi everyone, my name is NADIA and I will explain to you the comparative analysis for the Apollo Food Holdings Berhad. The first analysis is year-to-year change analysis. In this table, we can see that the company experienced a drop in sales in 2018 amounted to 24.10%. Meanwhile, in 2019 and 2020, the company experienced an increase in value on sales, which is 5.23% and 50.02% respectively. As for the profit for the financial year, only in 2020, the company experienced a positive percent of changes amounted to 45.28%. As for the other year, which are 2018 and 2019, Apollo Food Holdings Berhad experienced a negative percent of changes, which is negative 21.44% and negative 0.65% for each year. For this business, we decided to choose year 2020 because it shows the best performance. As we can see from the table, the gross profit increasing by 50.02%. Thus, it means that the company has more to cover the operating, financing, and other costs. Moreover, the profit before tax is higher. This means that the company is good in managing operating expenses. Other than that, on this year, Apollo also incurred the highest income compared to the other years. As for the index number trend analysis, in the table we can see that the company revenue increased by 5.23% and 50.02% in 2019 and 2020 respectively, and decreased by 24.1% in 2018. At the end of the 2020, the profit of the financial year increases a lot by 45.28% compared to the base year, but the other expenses increasing more by 289.21%. The 2020 trend percentage indicate an unfavorable effect on the company's profit as the other expenses increase at a higher rate compared to the revenue. The profit percentage appears to be higher than the base year because the base year amount is much smaller than the other balances. And lastly, the common size analysis. As for this analysis, we will look at the profit for the financial year, which is the net profit margin. The trend drops from 105.90% in 2018 to 96.82% in 2020. This is simply because the other income also decreases from 2018 to 2020. This can be the biggest impact for the profit as the other income is a big contributor to getting high profits. That's all from me. Thank you.
Now, we move to the financial ratio analysis. We use two ratios in order to calculate the liquidity ratio. The ratio that we choose is current ratio and net working capital ratio. The current ratio is a liquidity ratio that measures a company's ability to pay short-term obligations or those due within 1 year. It tells investors and analysts how a company can maximize the current assets on its balance sheet in order to satisfy its current debt and other payables. The current ratios of the company in the year of 2019 and 2020 are 136.35 times and 140.59 times respectively. Apollo's current ratio in 2020 indicates that it has 140.59 times more than compared to 2019, which is 136.35 times only. While for the net working capital, it is a measure of a company's liquidity and ability to meet short-term obligations as well as finance business operations. We can see that the company's net working capital shows an increment from 42,668,580 in 2019 to 47,604,207 in 2020. Large positive measurements indicate that a company has the capital it needs to expand quickly without incurring additional debt or attracting new investors. It can fund its own expansion by increasing the size of its existing operations. Next, we have efficiency ratio. An efficiency ratio measures a company's ability to use its assets to generate income. Apollo needs to keep track of the asset turnover ratio as it helps the company to measure how productive the business is and how much revenue it generates from its investment in the assets. In 2020, Apollo's asset turnover ratio is 0.15 times higher than in the year 2019, which is only 0.10 times. It indicates that the company has better turnover in the year of 2020. Next, the account receivable turnover for the year of 2020 has shown an increase of 0.75 times compared to the previous year, which is only 0.52 times. This ratio measures how efficiently a company collects revenue and therefore how efficiently it makes use of its assets. The increase indicates that the company's collection of accounts receivable is effective and that the company has a high proportion of high-quality customers who pay their debts on time.
Next is solvency ratios, or known as a leverage ratios of Apollo Berhad. Firstly is a debt ratios. As we can see in the bar chart, Apollo Berhad debt ratio for the year 2020 and 2019 is 0.31% and 0.30% respectively, which indicates that the debt ratio was slightly increased from the year 2019 to 2020. This indicates that the Apollo Berhad take a risk in use of debt to finance its investment during that year. Meanwhile, firms with a low debt ratio of 0.30% are considered to be more profitable because it indicates that they have not accumulated a large amount of debt and do not have to bear the burden of loan or credit interest payment, which is always beneficial to corporate's profit. The debt to equity ratio is the next thing we look at. According to the bar chart, there will be a modest increase in the year 2020 amounted to 0.31% as contrast to 0.30% in the year 2019. This suggests that the debtor's capital is more than the shareholder's capital, putting Apollo Berhad at a risk. Aside from that, in the year 2020 and 2019, Apollo Berhad obtained 0.31 times and 0.30 times debt financing from its debtor, respectively, for every 1 ringgit equity investment. Next financial ratios is profitability ratios. The first is return on asset, ROA, which is a measure that explains of how much money is made by determining the net income from the assets that a company owns. According to the bar chart, the ROA in the year 2020 will be 14.24%, up from 10.25% in the year 2019. It means that Apollo Berhad can turn a profit on the company's total asset with each investment ringgit it makes. Last but not least, there's a return on equity, ROE. Return on equity is a method to estimate the firm's total profitability. According to the bar chart, the ROA will be 14.28% in the year 2020, up from 10.29% in the year 2019. It indicates that Apollo Berhad is particularly efficient in utilizing its equity base and provides a lower return to its shareholders. It also demonstrates how well a company's management use its shareholders' money. That's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is HUSNA AKILAH binti BAKAR. I'm going to present about the strength and weaknesses of Apollo Food Holding Berhad and suggestion on how to address their weaknesses. The first strength of Apollo Food Holding Berhad is the company achieved a revenue turnover of RM24.098 million of the financial year ended 30 April 2020. A huge increase of 50% as compared to RM16.063 million for the previous financial year ended 30 April 2019, show the company has a better turnover. Other than that, the profit after taxation also increased by RM7.272 million, which amounted RM23.333 million for the year ended 2020 from RM16.06 million as recorded in the previous financial year. Total asset also increased from RM104.360 million as at last financial year end to RM111.719 million as at current financial year end. An increase of RM4.962 million in total current asset was mainly contributed by the increase in the trade and other receivable by RM7.959 million respectively. The account receivable turnover also increased from 0.52 times to 0.75 times on 2020. This showed the effectiveness of the company in collecting their account receivable. Next, we move to the weaknesses of Apollo Food Holding Berhad. First weakness is total liability had increased by RM25,798 ringgit, cause the debt ratio increased by 0.01% compared to the year before. This showed the company has more debt in 2020 compared to 2019. Next is the cash and banks balance is decreased from RM26.837 million to 23.839 million in 2020. This showed the company had a greater amount of cash outflow than cash inflow. Lastly, the other expenses also increased by RM878,436 ringgit respectively from RM303,735 ringgit on 2019 to RM1.182 million on 2020. This indicates the company spending more money on costs in 2020. Last but not least is the suggestion on how Apollo Food Holding Berhad address their weaknesses. The first suggestion is use new marketing technique. Spending more time and effort in marketing does not always require to spending more money. For example, by using internet and social media can be less costly and more effective way in communicating your message. Second is improve cash flow. This can be achieved by lowering company's expenses. The company should search for less expensive supplier and set up payment plan for bigger purchases. The last suggestion is prioritize debt. By prioritizing your debt will help you get creditor off your back quickly. Begin by how much you can pay now and how much you can pay later and when you can go on with payment plan. A budget can assist you in planning and directing your money to the most important area. That's all from me. Thank you.